Today I've got a pretty standard pressure washing job lined up. It's what you'll be doing most of the time if you have your own pressure washing business. And in this video, we're gonna do an entire job shadow. I'm gonna give you all the tips and tricks along the way that I've learned doing this for the last 6 or 7 years, and honestly that I wish I'd gotten when I was starting out. So I'm excited to have you here, let's get going. Okay, so right now we're actually on our way to the client's job site. So I'm doing an average pressure washing driveway, like I said. But before I'm even driving here, there's a couple things I definitely should talk about. And that's preparation. So preparation is super important for this business. And a lot of what we do is making sure that you're maximizing efficiency and reducing any wasted time possible. So I'd say there's really 3 big things you need to do before you even leave your house for the job site. And number 1 is to eat a really big breakfast. So you need to fuel your body throughout the day to make sure that you're well energized and you can work as hard as possible, because it is really manual work. So for example, I had a bunch of peanut butter toast and then I also had some mashed potatoes. It's a really weird combo, I know, but it works. And then my house didn't have a lot of great food for lunch, but I did bring this 900 calorie protein shake. So that's what I'll be eating and drinking on the job site as I go. And you don't really want to leave the job site to grab food. It's a total waste of time. So the second thing that I would say is really key is just to check all your equipment. So you need to do a full inventory. You need to have wireless headphones. You need to have safety goggles in case there's a lot of kickback. You gotta have all your gear for pressure washing, obviously. And then it's also really important to make sure you have gas. So today I nearly left my gas can. And if I had left my gas can, I would have gone to the site, tried to set up, realized I'd forgotten it, and have to drive all the way home, which obviously is a total waste of time. So don't do that. And then the third is clothing. So you definitely want to check the weather before, honestly days before any job, just to get some preparation and know exactly what you're going to need to wear. So on a rainy day, you need to really layer up, have some waterproof layers to keep you in maximum comfort. Today, even though it's going to be almost 80 degrees, I'm still wearing rain boots and also semi-waterproof pants. I think they're hunting pants is what they are actually. But that's really important. That'll keep my lower body dry. And I've worn like tennis shoes pressure washing before. Totally works for a couple of hours, but eventually your shoes will get wet. And when they do, it messes everything up. It's super uncomfortable and it'll make you want to quit the job. So I highly would recommend buying some actual rain boots, no matter what the weather is. So those are some really key pointers before you get to the job site. And speaking of the job site, we're very nearly here. So let's go ahead and pull in. Awesome, so we just got to the job site, about to unload my gear, but the first thing you'll notice is that even though it looks kind of tacky, I have a canopy over the back of my truck, and that's because I've had all of my gear stolen before out of the back of my pickup. So since that happened, I got this and it locks. That extra layer of security is really important, and as someone who pressure washes, your gear is basically your lifeline. So without your gear, there's no way you can proficiently make money and get jobs done. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out. I'm just gonna unlock it here. And then just taking a look inside right here, one thing you'll also notice is that I have bungee cords on all of my big machinery. So when I'm driving around, this can rattle. I'll hit speed bumps and you don't know what's gonna happen. So you wanna make sure this is really secured down. And I didn't used to do this, but I actually had my choke crack in half and I lost like 3 jobs because of it. It took me weeks to get fixed and it was honestly just a really big pain in the neck. So you definitely wanna make sure this is secured tight, and that's just part of like taking care of your gear and doing everything right. So what I like to do is I'll use this little bungee cord, put it right here, hook it onto the top of my truck, and that keeps the doors open so everything's free to unload. So a couple other things. This is a Champion 4200 PSI machine. So I would say most like garage residential pressure washers that people own are like 2700 PSI. So like I said, this is a much, much stronger machine. It gets the job done perfectly, not too big, not too small. It also has this rabbit and turtle feature on it. So I can have as much power as I want or as little as I want. If I'm working on something that's really fragile, I'll turn it to the turtle, and that basically makes it like a really light hose. Pretty much no pressure coming out at that point. So I really like that feature, and I know it gives a lot of my customers peace of mind, because a lot of people are really concerned that like you're gonna damage their wood or you're gonna damage their driveway, especially if it's old or things like that. So this is the first big guy. Go ahead and unload him. I used to have ramps actually, that came out the back of the truck, and I can just roll it down. And I was borrowing them from someone. I haven't like forked out the money to buy them myself since they're like $130 each, so it'd be like 260 bucks. But that really does help save your back. It's something I would recommend, although I'm being very hypocritical because I don't have it here myself, and it does kind of hurt to lift this thing. I think it's over 100 pounds. So let's get this out. I kind of like to push it against my hip as I lift, and then like kind of bounce it off the truck as I lift it down. So you're gonna kind of see what that looks like right here. Go like this, and then I'll put that right there. Kind of just ease it down. So that's something you'll just get used to. It's no big deal. But there's that. You want a big gas can. You don't want to have to go to the gas station while you're working. It's a waste of time, and you want to work really efficiently. So definitely invest in one of those. I think that's 5 gallon right there. This is a B Whirlaway. And this, I recognize this is very dirty right now. It's not always like that. But this thing is magic. This cut the time that it took me to do a driveway almost in half. And the crazy thing is it does just as good of a job as using a regular wand to pressure wash. So you'll see my technique in a bit here, but this machine, I think it cost me about 350 bucks, is one of the best investments I've ever made while running this business. And I highly, highly recommend you buy one yourself. All right. These are my wands. I bring 2. They're both a little bit leaky, which is unfortunate, but they're different lengths. So if I'm pressure washing by hand all day, the short one I'll have to hunch over to use. It really hurts my back. But it's also really nice if I'm doing like a wall, because then you don't want to have a super long machine. You want to be able to see what you're doing, super long wand. So I like having 2. I use the same attachment on the tip of both. I believe this is a 45-degree tip. So each tip has a different width and a different strength. This one's personally my favorite. I think it's the only one I really use ever. But that's something you just figure out as you go. Anyways, those are my wands. Now, this is my hose for the wand. See me connect that in a minute. And this is a 100-foot contractor's grade non-kink hose. It's not a garden hose. So what's really nice about this is that it doesn't really kink. Really, really thick rubber, so it's not gonna get punctured if you pressure wash over it. And also, the ends of this thing are super sturdy and really strong. So this isn't like a regular garden hose. This can take a lot of beating, and I've gone through a ton of hoses while I've worked. So I highly recommend getting this. Something that's kind of unique, you may not notice if I hadn't shown you, is that on this end, I have like a $5 attachment. So you can take it off like this. Pretty easy, so you're used to seeing that. I add this, and what that does is it's a water shut-off valve. So I can just twist this thing and turn the water off very easily. And you'll see why I use that in a minute, but it allows me to not have to walk all the way to the base of the hose and twist that thing a bunch. It probably saves me like 10 to 15 minutes per job. May not sound like a lot, but for $5, definitely worth it. All right. And then going to the back of my truck, you'll also notice I have a backup hose. This one isn't very nice. So this is just a regular garden hose in case I need it. I used to use it a lot, but since I bought that, there's really no need. And then in the very back of my truck, right there, you'll see a back sprayer. So that is actually for sealing driveways. So I'll go and buy jugs of sealant from Home Depot or Lowe's, fill that bad boy up, and it's kind of an add-on after I've pressure washed the driveway, and I'll try to sell it when I'm done. Be like, hey, I just pressure washed your driveway, it looks great, and they're typically really happy. But I'll say, you can also have it sealed if you'd like. I'll do it for this much money, it's totally optional, but it basically ensures that you won't have to hire me next summer. And since it costs half the price of actually pressure washing, I've had a lot of people say yes. I'd say it's kind of optional. Like, I've made money, but it's not like a ton of money for the amount of time it takes. I'd say it typically takes like less than an hour to seal a driveway. But the sealant itself is like ridiculously expensive. Like for a driveway like I'm on right now, it'd probably take 3 or 4 jugs of sealant. It's 25 bucks a jug. So that's almost $100 just in like supplies that you'll need. So say you quote them 125, which they're not gonna wanna pay over that. You're only making 25 bucks. I mean, it only takes an hour, so I think it's worth it. But you're kind of have to figure that out yourself and find a good balance there. So that's for the gear. As you can see, it's all laid out. Now I just have to go ahead and set it up. Okay, so what I'm gonna do next is walk you guys through the entire setup phase. And the first thing I like to do when I get all my gear out of my truck is just to top off my machine with gas. So this way, I won't run for an hour or 2 hours and have to lose my productivity flow and do that. I just do it right from the start. Looks like it's about half full right now, so it shouldn't take a ton. But it will take more than you think. So this is kind of just step one of the setup process. All right, now I can kind of get rid of this bad boy, just get him somewhere where he won't be a problem. We'll stick him right here in the dirt. So step two is to get the hoses connected. This hose is awesome. It's also really thick, it's really heavy. I like to uncoil it as little as possible. So coiling it can actually take up to 10 to 15 minutes. Again, these little things might not sound like they're a big deal, but they really do add up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect it to the outlet right there, keep it coiled up, put it in the grass, hook my machine up right there, and just rely on my black one with the wand connected to it to reach everything I need to reach. That way, I can do the entire job without even having to uncoil my hose. So let's go ahead and do that. Perfect. All right. Move this guy right in here. And I'm gonna move my machine into the grass. Another side note, I didn't fill the gasoline over their grass. If I'd spilled any, it would have killed it. So that's just courtesy to the customer. I always make sure to refill the gas over concrete or wood or something like that. Awesome. So I'm now halfway hooked up with hoses. The second one that I need to do is my black hose to the wand. So let's go ahead and do that. And then what I like to do is I like to uncoil this to its full length before I attach the wand, before I even get started. That way I have a lot of maneuverability once I get going. So little things, a lot of personal preference here, but you can go ahead and watch me do that. Let's see. Whew. Oh, God. Oh, ow. Whew. That has never happened before. One sec. Whew. Did you see that? I like flicked it up and it hit me right in the face. Man, this is also really, really knotted. There we go. So I kind of just like to twist it out. Okay, looks like that knot up there is gonna need to be done by hand. Let's go ahead and do that. And these are things you don't really want to do once you got the machine running, so that's why I do them now. Perfect. All right, so as you can see, this hose is completely unknotted all the way to the machine. And that means we're getting very close to being ready to go. So what I'm gonna do next is actually connect this to my bee whirl away. I don't even mess around with the wand at first. I'm gonna do this entire driveway with the disc, completely pressure wash it, and what I'll do next is unattach the whirl away, attach my wand, and go over it, hit anything that I missed, especially hit the edges, and also just shoot all that dirt that's sitting on the driveway off. So like I said, the whirl away, it pressure washes it, but it doesn't like totally remove the dirt from the driveway. It just kind of breaks everything up a bunch. So that's kind of my strategy here. I think some people probably start with the wand and might do that first, but personally I think it saves a ton of time just to go straight to the whirl away. So that's what I'm gonna hook up right now, which is great. Perfect. All right, so that's that. If you start your machine without the water being turned on and you run it, you have a very high chance of completely breaking your machine. So it'll run too hot. I think the gears will start melting can be a really, really big issue. And when you're starting out, it can be kind of easy to forget that. So what I always do, like as quickly as I can, now that everything's hooked up, is just turn the water on. Do not forget to do that. Great. So now that the water is on from the hose outlet, I can control it from that little attachment I mentioned earlier, so I never have to deal with that again until I'm done with the job, which is kind of nice. It's not a ton of distance here. I'd say I'm only like 20 feet away from the hose outlet, but sometimes if I have this hose all the way stretched out, it'll add an extra like 100 feet or 50 yards of walking back and forth. So I like to save time there when I can. But it looks like we're pretty good to go. So since haven't been running for a little bit, there's a lot of air in the hoses, which you want to get out. So before I start the machine, I just pull the trigger, and you can hear that air coming out. It's a lot of it. Great. Another thing I'm gonna do is lock the trigger. So this is a bungee cord. You can get it for like $2 at Home Depot. And what I do is I wrap it around the handle and tie it off. So that way the water, if you're not touching it, will be running. But if you can also reverse squeeze it and to turn it off. And so this little bungee cord, it kind of locks the trigger down. If I pull it, it holds it down, which is great. So I can let go and it's still pressure washing away once the machine is running. And if you're pressure washing, there's really two big health issues that you're prone to. The first is arthritis and carpal tunnel because you're squeezing so hard with your wrist right here. So that's why I have this. It's actually to protect my wrists. And the second is hearing loss. So machines are so loud. A lot of people who pressure wash consistently, they don't have great hearing. And there's also something I do to protect myself against that, and that is to buy noise-proof Bluetooth headphones. So these are 3M. They're called WorkTunes Connect. And it took me like over an hour of research to find the best pair of headphones. So I will link these down below. And these are great. So like when I have these on, the pressure washer kind of sounds like a purr and it's not affecting my hearing. But I mean, fair warning, without these, the pressure washer is like crazy, crazy loud. So I highly recommend having these. I think they're necessary. The third form of protection you can do is wear eyeglasses so pebbles don't shoot you in the eye. I typically don't wear those unless I really need to. But yeah, just a side note there. So with that, we're totally ready to set up the machine and get going. So to turn on the machine, and there's probably a lot better YouTube videos you could watch on how to start a pressure washer, but I'm just gonna go through the basics. First thing you need to do is to make sure that the electricity, the power is on here. So that was already on. It's not a big deal if it's left on. So that's like just the power. This is the fuel. So right now the fuel valve is off. No fuel can be running to the engine. Definitely wanna make sure that's on. So keep that bad boy on. This is like I mentioned earlier, the turtle and rabbit thing. So it's just how strong you want the engine to run. When I'm starting out, I like to go max power or a little bit less. I think you can really do that from any position though. No biggie there. And then I'm sure you know what a choke is, but your choke needs to be on, especially when the machine's cold. So I'm gonna flip that to the on position. And then all that's required is just to pull the handle and get it fired up and immediately turn the choke off. One thing that can help is to run the water while you're doing this, which I will do. So what's nice is that I can kind of just pull the handle, let the bungee cord do the rest of the work, and get fired up. Awesome. So once this machine gets rolling, it's gonna get very, very loud and you're not gonna be able to hear what I'm saying, which is why I'm gonna show you my technique with the whirl away before I fire up the machine. And it's really simple, it's really quick. So what I do, say if I'm doing this whole square here, is I would start right here, I'd have it on and I'd slowly walk it to the end of the strip that I'm working on. So like this. And now this entire little strip here has been pressure washed very well, but you want to give them the best quality, highest possible quality work you can do. So I hit everything twice with this. I'll also go backwards. And now that 2.5 foot wide lane has totally been pressure washed, I'll just scoot over and do the exact same thing. So it's just forward and back across the entire driveway. And it goes faster than you think, especially when you're listening to a good podcast or good music. So that's the technique. All right, so we're all ready to get fired up, and that's exactly what we're gonna do now. Let's go. All right, so I just finished this driveway. As you can see, I did kind of a crisscross pattern with the disc, which really helped like pressure wash it, but all that dirt was just kind of sitting there and baking in the sun. So I went back over it with the wand, hit everything off the driveway, and it looks pretty much good as new now. It wasn't a super tough job, not a ton of grime, but needless to say, I made a huge difference. I think the customer's gonna be really happy. And I gave them a little bit of a good deal on this driveway since they let us film. But I typically charge about 125 bucks for this. And this wouldn't take me more than 2.5 hours. So like I said, that's a solid $50 an hour right there, which is great for any college student or honestly, anyone else as well. So yeah, all that's left to do is to load everything up, put it back in my truck and drive back home and eat a pretty big dinner because honestly, this is pretty exhausting. So let's get going. So that's a day in the life of my summer gig, pressure washing, and it's hard work. I mean, it's not for everyone, but the way I see it, I'll typically take my shirt off, get a tan, get paid a heck of a lot more than minimum wage, and I also get to listen to great music while I'm doing it and get a bit of a workout. So I think it's awesome. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you're thinking about doing something similar, I would urge you just to dive right in. So this is the first job shadow video on this channel. We're really interested in doing more, but if you have ideas, feel free to comment those. And I'd usually ask you to like and subscribe a video like this, but I'm actually not gonna ask you to do that. Instead, I'm gonna ask that if you have a friend who you think might get some benefit or value out of any of the videos on our channel, just send it their way and ask them what they think. And if you feel like it, you can let us know how they feel about it. So that would be much more appreciated, and I think it's just a little bit more genuine. So that's all. Probably gonna have to go now so I don't get in a car crash, but thank you so much for watching this, and we'll catch you guys next time.